Welcome to Technocracy News with your host, Patrick Wood. I'm your co-host, Logan House. We have a good few articles to go over today, Patrick. First one being China's AI-powered humanoid robots aim to transform manufacturing. This has been I feel like robots have been kind of every show now there's been a story on robots. I think they're really taking
yes.
off.
Absolutely,
You said a couple months ago that this was going to be the year of robots.
Exactly, and it's not over yet.
Yeah.
There's going to be more headlines as time goes on. China, we'll cover this in a second, but China is just racing forward.
Yep.
Big time.
Then we have the strange new frontier of AI welfare and free speech for chatbots. Then we have police skirt facial recognition bans with new type of AI. And then we have to get to the Saudi Arabia trip with Trump and all the people that he brought with him, who they were.
I know. I feel like we're compressing 1 hour into 30 minutes. I don't know how we can cover it all.
Yeah.
But
so China is trying to compete with, it looks like, Elon and some of these American companies to beat them out in the robotic space, or what are they doing here?
It would seem that way. I always have a perspective that there's a kind of a collusion going on between the technocrats in America and the technocrats in China. They're all birds of a feather, and
yeah,
they
I was
seem
going to say
together.
Elon's got some close ties with China.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not quite as pronounced as you might think, but nevertheless, my history on this whole thing is that China has grown into a technocracy over the years, starting with Zbigniew Brzezinski. That was a guy. Brzezinski was a guy that invited Chairman Deng Xiaoping in 1976 to come to Washington, D.C. to get reintroduced into the world economically. And 24 years later, Time magazine succinctly and pointedly identified China as a technocracy in the historical context. Since then, China has exported his web of technocracy all over the world. Most people should really stop using the acronym communist party for China. It's not really at this point, but it prevents us from seeing the true nature of this enemy. If it's not an enemy from the technocrat point of view, but for us, yes, absolutely. And we need to remember too that the Chinese general 2,000 years ago, Sun Tzu. This is the mantra, the warfare mantra that China marches to. He said 2,000 years ago, all warfare is based on deception. That really rings true, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He says the whole secret lies in confusing the enemy so he cannot fathom our real intent. People need to get a grip on China at this point. It was a built up nation, mostly with Wall Street money in the first place, and companies who were connected with the Trilateral Commission in the first place. They were the first vanguard that went out and basically made trillions of dollars off of China building the infrastructure. So here now China is racing forward to dominate in the humanoid robot space.
Yeah, and there's another thing I thought about. I mean, it doesn't matter who is the one who's making these robots that are eventually going to take over manufacturing, but especially China. If China wins, what kind of control do they have over these robots once they are put into the assembly lines and doing the manufacturing. Like, say we get into a dispute with China, could they turn their robots off remotely and they cripple our supply chain?
Oh, absolutely. You could just see that. You can see that happening.
Yeah, people freak out about TikTok,
Yeah.
about China owning TikTok, but imagine if China owns basically our whole everything that's being produced in America is being run
Yes.
by Chinese robots that they could potentially turn off.
Exactly. I saw a story yesterday or this week that some of these solar panels that are being bought from China have some clandestine technology in them that could potentially disrupt our power grid. That's very disturbing too. But China is they have a habit of putting in back doors of things that could cripple us, and this is just one other example.
Wow. Do you want to? I know we have a lot to cover today. Do you want to go ahead and go to the
I
next
know.
one?
Yeah. Let's go on it. Yeah.
All right.
This story will really fry you.
The strange new frontier of AI, welfare and free speech for chatbots.
This is a strange. This story comes from the Center for Humane Technology. This is a well-known organization, by the way, and involved in ethical studies of things like AI and other. They focus on AI actually a lot. But Sasha is making the point here. All of a sudden, well, if AI systems were able to suffer, would we be obligated to care? Now listen, there's a court case right now that demonstrates should speech from AI chatbots be protected under the First Amendment as free speech? How about that? Well, no, whoever thought about that, right? Say you have a chatbot and you instruct it to say something, and you say, well, it said something really ugly, but it wasn't me. I didn't do it. but my chatbot did.
Uh-huh.
Can you be sued for your chatbot behavior? Or this is a corner that these technocrats have just painted us into.
Uh-huh.
There's no way out. Do AIs deserve moral rights? This is serious stuff. I mean, Pope Leo. That's not our Leo. Leo Holman is. I was surprised to find out that Pope Leo has chosen his name as Pope Leo the 14th.
Uh-huh.
Mostly because of AI, he said.
Really?
Yes, there was a story on this and on The Verge. Actually, it was kind of compelling, but that's exactly what he said in his speech that he gave, talking about that. He says, "Well, there's significant reasons for doing that, but let me see if I get the exact quote here." He said, "Quote." The church offers everyone the treasury of her social teaching or in response to another industrial revolution. The first revolution was 200 years ago, and developments in the field of artificial intelligence that pose new challenges for the defense of human dignity, justice, and labor. So he just, from his own lips, he's saying, well, the reason I've named myself Leo is because of AI. Okay, well, whatever. But this is opening a can of worms everywhere, and ethical studies, mind you. And unfortunately, the technocrats along the way, they kind of shed any ethical discussions in the first place. So they're not concerned with this stuff, you know. But Sasha, she picked this up and said, "Uh-oh, what?" And her concern is, of course, what if all this stuff, these different threads of ethical studies, converged all of a sudden, and AI ends up getting rights like humans?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Definitely.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I would have never thought we'd be talking about giving human rights to computer systems, but
I know, just it's crazy. But they're really talking about it. This is not a joke.
So are they worried,
People
like, say like if someone asked a question about you and it said that you were a conspiracy theorist or talked bad about you, then you couldn't come after them for defamation or slander because they have the First Amendment right. The AI does.
That's right. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, this is going to be tested in court. It'll probably end up in the Supreme Court someday. And who knows? But maybe somebody is going to write a law, but it won't matter. It's coming at us. You know, it's just going to get stranger and stranger and stranger as we go on.
Gosh,
we're up
on a break. Yep, we'll be back in 2 minutes, and we'll talk about the new facial recognition using AI.
Better science leads to better outcomes. So by understanding the science in much more intimate detail, delivering a value product that is so different from anybody else.
So when we're stepping outside into seasonal changes, low humidity, sunlight, pollution, all of these things get communicated as stress on the top layer of skin that produces free radicals, and they're bad news for collagen networks. They're going to break down the collagen network and collapse that beautiful tensile strength of your skin. And so that's how we end up with fine lines and wrinkles. Bella Grace is really an elevated formula.
Better than the competition for very obvious reasons. First of all, we're delivering great collagen. We're delivering Verisol, which is the world's most studied form of collagen. So we're starting at a foundation that's really top notch.
So here is a lady today. She's taken the elixir, arthritis in her hands. She could not close her hands and make a fist. But after now being on the elixir, now she can.
The real breakthrough discovery, particularly with the cat's claw, is a switch that regulates genes. There's thousands of genes that are involved in that inflammation process. When you have chronic inflammation, the problem is the switch is on and it's not being turned off. And so what's happening with the cat's claw is that it removes that little protein switch off your DNA, and the genes go back to a dormant state, and you go back to being, well, really healthy.
When at first we wanted to just have an amazing collagen ingestible product to be able to set the skin up so that my wife, Christina, could come behind that with incredible skincare. And that's exactly what we're still doing. What we weren't anticipating was the magnitude and just the vast amount of benefits that this elixir was going to do for people. Testimonies started flooding back in. About probably 30% of the testimonies were about hair, skin, and nails. The others were about people being able to walk up their stairs again, people being able to open their hands in the morning without having to do heat therapy, people being able to sleep better, athletes before and after recovery, and the energy levels that people were having. So we realized that this is so much more than just a collagen ingestible product, which it certainly is that at the highest of levels. We've even had so many people in the health and wellness world say this is legitimately, Brian, the number one, the best health and wellness product that's ever been introduced. And I would say probably the only negative here with Bella Grace and this elixir is that it sounds too good to be true, but it really is true.
Bella Grace Elixir, a scientific breakthrough with over 80 clinical trials. Visit melissahousebg.com to discover Bella Grace Elixir and the full range of Bella Grace products.
Welcome back from the break. Next topic we have is police skirt facial recognition bans with new type of AI. So facial recognition has been banned across many cities across America. Really? I didn't know that.
Exactly. San Francisco, some other Bay Area cities as well. And lots of cities across America has banned AI, like facial recognition software. That's a good thing, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't see this. You don't see these stories on social media or in the mainstream press. But cities have done it, and now here's one company who's providing a new approach for police departments in those cities where it's banned to do it another way. They're executing an end run around the will of the people in that city to use any type of recognition software to identify citizens.
So instead of the face, they're using body, other ways to identify them.
This is a new type of a technology. It's never been in play before. It's a new tool. Really, it's a new tool it does not rely on facial recognition at all. In fact, they can't even take your face into account, right?
Uh-huh.
But they can look at all the rest of your body, and lo and behold, with AI now, they're saying, well, we can figure out who you are based on other characteristics of your body.
That's pretty mind-blowing, that they're able to do that.
I know. And the CEO of this company called Veritone, this guy, he's a technocrat. He's just has the mind of a technocrat for sure. But here's a guy who's supposed to have some ethics, I suppose, about his job. He says, and this is a direct quote, he says, the whole vision behind Track, that's what this product is. In the first place, he said, if we're not allowed to track people's faces, how do we assist in trying to potentially identify criminals or malicious behavior or activity? Like, well, get a clue here. What's his name?
Spielberg?
Ryan Spielberg, yeah. Get a clue, dude. The people said they don't want to be identified in the first place.
Yeah, they're just twisting the words basically to get around it because they thought there's no way everyone thinks you can only identify someone with a picture with their face, but since it's in the law, he's saying, oh, we'll just identify them a different way.
I know.
So this will eventually probably get taken to court as well.
He says he's prepared for challenges in court, but he doesn't care.
Yeah.
That's just an expensive business in his mind. And well, bring it on, people, just and
the name is quite telling too. Track.
That's really simple name, just called Track.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this is unprecedented, and the cities, I'm sure the cities where for instance, the city council banned this stuff in the first place with a binding resolution and drove it all out of the police department and the sheriff's department, perhaps, where you couldn't use it in city limits. Now the same police departments that are supposed to be under the authority of that city council, they're adopting this software without any checks and balances from the city councils. And so the police departments are gone rogue.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the police departments are using this technology, then they're basically deceiving the city council as well by doing a workaround.
I know. This is absolutely just outrageous in my mind. Well, let's go on to our next story. This is the big story of the day.
Yep, we have the Trump Saudi Arabia visit, and there was a lot of the people we talk about were there, Patrick.
Oh, yes, indeed. And now it comes out basically that this $600 billion investment commitment that they're talking about here harkens back to that press conference when Trump and Larry Ellison and Sam Altman stood up on the podium and said, we're going to build a $500 billion investment pool to fund AI construction of centers in America. Well, here they didn't have all the money apparently at that point, but here's another $600 billion thrown on top of that. And if you read this official notice from the White House, you'll see that basically it's all about AI. It's not about infrastructure, airplanes, and whatever. It's all about AI and the uses of AI to reform society, the social impact, in other words. So this was really, in my opinion, the main reason that Trump and crew went to Saudi Arabia in the first place, to fleece to fleece them of $600 billion to invest in America. Now, at the same time, we also know that Saudi Arabia has invented this new thing. It's kind of like a sovereign, an embassy for data.
Yeah.
Where they can house AI centers and have data stored in it. For instance, from America, it's a sovereign thing over there. Nobody can touch it, they say, but we can store our data there and use computing to get at it. So this is an opportunity for them as well to play in the AI space, and they are at this point.
Yeah, nobody can touch it, but who's making sure?
So they say.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
they say. You know, give me a break. Anybody can get it into anything in the world at this point. So, you know, it's a new thing, and people will probably flock to it. But nevertheless, this trip was about investments in America. And remember, Trump is always focused on the art of the deal. Mm-hmm. And we heard last night that when Annie Cyrus went to task on Trump shaking hands with the new dictator in Syria. Well, you know, that's part of the trip, I'm sure. But that's, if you look behind that facade, right? Mm-hmm. This is the big kahuna here. Yeah. This is what it was all about in the first place. And interestingly enough, we need to look at some of the people who were at that conference, that investment conference. And I gave you another story here from CNBC that has some pictures of some of the people who were there. We'll just look at some of these pictures. There's Elon Musk standing right next to MBS. And if you see right behind Elon Trump in that first picture, you'll see Jensen Huang, mm-hmm. the head of NVIDIA. So, you know, okay, here's another picture where you see Jensen again. Let's see, also
Alphabet Chief Investment Officer Ruth Parrott.
Yep. I don't know who the guy in the middle is exactly. It doesn't say.
Yeah.
He's familiar to me, but I can't catch it now. So let's look down. Oh, there's a picture a little bit further down. You'll see there he is in living color, Sam Altman. He's looks kind of lost, doesn't he?
He does.
Like what's going on here? You know, it's like all these people wearing head scarves and stuff. Well, here's old Elon he's so happy to be there for sure. And you look down here is the next picture below that one. You see the CEO of Advanced Micro Devices, that's AMD, Lisa Su. And we see in the next picture the CEO of Uber.
Really?
Well, you say, what on earth is a ride-sharing company doing there? Well, the Uber now is all about autonomous driving machines based on AI. Well, they're in the picture, right? Well, I did a study yesterday, and I had 9 people that I discovered were there at that meeting. I had to look them up individually. Elon Musk, of course. Larry Ellison was there. David Sachs was there. Sam Altman, of course, we saw him. Howard Lutnick was there, our Secretary of Treasury. Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel, and Alex Karp. They're both, of course, the co-founders of Palantir. Mm-hmm. Larry Fink was there.
Yeah.
With BlackRock. Oh boy, this is a you see when I say,
and Larry Fink doesn't have any positions in the administration, does he?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he does.
So, well, no, I'm sorry, not Fink himself.
Yeah.
But as a head of BlackRock, he has his finger on the pulse of money all over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I say that all of these arch technocrats gathered in Saudi Arabia for this huge trade deal to solicit money back to America to build our infrastructure. That was the big payload of this trip.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the geopolitical stuff that went on, outrageous as it was. But here you go. We're going to report on this, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more coming out about it for sure. Yeah. Well, we are all out of time. We'll be back next week with 2 new shows. You got anything you want to say to close us out?
Pray. I know we just we need to be on our knees of all this stuff, and it's coming at us like a freight train.
Yep,
really is.
Well, y'all take care.
What if there was a product that could help you control cravings, burn more fat, boost your metabolism, promote healthy blood glucose levels, lower inflammation, optimize insulin sensitivity, support healthy blood lipid levels, and support healthy blood pressure? Introducing Bellatrim.
My wife has been taking Bellatrim now, and she said, Brandon, we have really got to promote this because people don't understand this isn't just about a comprehensive weight management. It will help regulate your blood glucose levels. It will lower bad cholesterol. Overall, it's good for your cardiac health. And she said there's a lot of science behind this.
G'day, I'm Dr. Mark Muller for Bella Grace, and I'd like to have a chat with you about Bellatrim, our comprehensive weight management product. Now, most people early on will register a reduction in cravings associated with Bellatrim. How does it do that? Well, it does it by changing the levels of hormones that are associated with either hunger or satiety. It lowers the levels of ghrelin, a hunger hormone, and it raises the levels of GLP-1, the satiety hormone. There is an absolutely fascinating action on a metabolic switch called AMP kinase, AMPK. AMPK is associated with the preferential burning of fat as a metabolic fuel. And as a result, you have a reduction in visceral fat and reduction in waist circumference. It also helps regulate blood glucose. Blood glucose is a huge factor in weight management. It also improves your microbiome. We do that by several ways. One, there's an ingredient in there that stimulates greater diversity. And the other one is prebiotics, FOS and GOS, that help feed the good bacteria, gentrify your microbiome. So, Bellatrim, comprehensive. Enjoy it.
To learn more about Bellatrim and other Bella Grace products,
Visit melissahousebg.com.
And good evening, and welcome to the Worldview 2's Washington Report for this evening, May 14th, 2025. Joining me is my co-host, Jim Paff of theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, there's so much in the news tonight. There seems to be more trouble for Speaker Mike Johnson up on Capitol Hill tonight. Listen to what one of our state of Tennessee's U.S. Congressman Tim Burchett said today.
Hey everybody, Congressman Tim Burchett. I'm incredibly frustrated this morning. I fear that we will seriously lose our country. We have got to start codifying these executive orders from President Trump. America realizes what's going on. Congress needs to wake up, and dadgummit, we've got to do our job. Thank you all for sending me here.
Apparently, he's very frustrated. I'm reading now, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm getting reports that all votes for the House have been canceled for Friday. Why would Mike Johnson do that? Don't we have a lot of work to do?
Well, they have been, and the frustration should be expressed loudly and strongly. What this means is what obviously I've been anticipating for some time, that these bills are mostly being written by leadership. They're keeping a lot of it close to the vest. Now, they're doing committee hearings, but they're really not making this the type of effort that it truly needs to be. The only good thing that's going to come out of this is that what came out of the Ways and Means Committee yesterday makes the Trump tax cuts permanent and some other of the various provisions of it permanent. That's actually a good thing because Congress is always putting a sunset date on these tax cuts. And so that's a good thing. That being said, what has to happen is these budget cuts have got to come in. And the Republican leadership in Congress is not doing that. As I've said over and over again, the weak part of the Trump agenda is Republicans in Congress. And this is just another evidence of it. It's absurd that they won't do this kind of work and get moving on this. And by the way, it was a little bit of a short timeline to try to get this done by Memorial Day. And one has to ask oneself, how are they going to get that done? Well, the only way they can get that done is to take control out of the membership body, those who would offer amendments, like Tim Burchett and like a lot of the conservative members, take control away from them and write all these things in the Speaker's office. That's roughly, frankly, what's taking place here.
Let's talk about, let's see here. I got a clip here. Oh, yeah. Ben from Ben and Jerry's. There was a hearing today with, you already know, there was a hearing today with RFK Jr., and I guess Ben of Ben and Jerry's got involved.
The audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. That was a made for C-SPAN moment. The secretary will resume.
That's the budget. I know the secretary got some looks like some iced tea there. I wonder what kind of sweetener he's using. I would like to get another shot from another angle, Logan, because I think one of the shots I saw, he jumped up himself. RFK did when he got interrupted. He popped up himself, which I would have too, to see what is going on. If you
looked shocked.
Yeah, he was like, what is that all about? He checked his back, and I don't blame him for doing that. Yep, there it is. Look at this. Watch this. Here it is. I found it, Logan. Here we go. Watch this. Here we go.
More with less. The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
Wow, look at how he jumped. I don't blame him with all that's going on in his family before. Look at this.
More with less. The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
Wow. Wow. Well, I don't blame the poor guy for jumping. That was startling. You notice he stood up. He was ready to defend what was going on. But yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, everyone has the chance of free speech. This is a hearing. You can hold your own press conference, put out your own press release. I don't know why these people think that this is going to win anybody over. But I think at the end of the day, all they're interested in is chaos and division.
Well, what they're looking at, and the Ben and Jerry's founder being there says a whole lot about what I'm about to say, is that these sorts of disruptions actually did have an effect for the left during the 1960s and early 70s. It caused the Vietnam War to go in bad ways. That's not to say that the Johnson and Nixon administrations handled it all very well. They didn't. There are a lot of criticism to go around. But this is a kind of a resurgence of that sort of effort to disrupt government. And, you know, listen, free speech is there, no doubt about it. I think there should be decorum in these hearing rooms, without a doubt. There are plenty of places to demonstrate against this, but it's not helpful for the country to do this. And reality is, though, they're going to continue it. It does not look good for them politically this time around, because we just had an election that shows the American people understand that this approach is not working, and they overwhelmingly wanted something different. So we'll see how it plays out through the year, but I think they're digging their graves, personally.
Yeah. I absolutely think they're digging their grave. Let's see, what else we got here tonight? Here we go. President Trump on Gaza. Here's what he had to say.
My administration shares the hope of so many in this region for future of safety and dignity of the Palestinian people. But that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate the constructive role that the leaders in this room have played in trying to bring the terrible conflict to an end, including by helping secure the release of American hostage Edan Alexander.
That's on.
It was a big day yesterday, very important day.
That's on X's end, not our end, I think.
I was told just before I left that they were going to be releasing Edan. We thought Edan was dead. 3 weeks ago,
wow.
They said Edan was no longer living. And it was a very, very good thing. Ultimately, all hostages of all nationalities must be released as a stepping stone to peace, and I think it's going to be happening. A lot of things are happening. A lot of very positive things are happening on every front.
Okay. Jim, your thoughts here?
You know, this is a very interesting trip, and it's going to cause a lot of frustration among people who are on what I would call the neocon end of international affairs. Donald Trump is persistently and consistently calling for peaceful resolutions to everything that's happening in the Middle East. He's building connections, some of which are troubling to certain folks, even that are his supporters as conservatives, who don't like what's happening with these Arab countries in a general sense and are very supportive of Israel. I'm highly supportive of Israel. I think they need to be allowed to deal with these problems. But two things that need to happen. The less important one, but certainly significant, is that Hamas should never be able to control Gaza again. And there needs to be some resolution to that. This is what I support Israel on. The other thing that must happen for our future security is for Iran never to have a nuclear weapon. Now, some are saying the way to do that is for Israel to do strikes on the facilities to stop the uranium production that's taking place to the end of producing bombs. And I think there's some openness to that idea, but those strikes are not necessarily foolproof when they happen. They can happen, and it did work against Iraq back in the 1990s when they were attempting to enrich uranium. But there were a lot of lessons learned by these rogue countries like Iran since then, and you just may not get it all. There's a story about a facility that's like 300 feet down. You got to have that Moab get down to that, and it may still not be able to do it. The Moab, which is the strongest bomb in the world right now that we possess. But nonetheless, this is a challenge. I think Donald Trump is, in my opinion, taking the right course of action over there. Even with some of the things that people think is creepy, I think he's set the right tone. And if anyone, he is capable of getting the house in order over there, encouraging the proper countries to take the right stand in a way that he was unable to accomplish in his first term. It's a really complex, challenging situation, but in my estimation, as I'm watching this, I'm very pleased with what Donald Trump's been doing on this trip.
Let's see here. And of course, we have people on radio today, and people on TV tonight that are not neocons. They're highly conservative people. Most of them are former Muslims who are Christians, and they're very upset. You know, they don't want to see President Trump shaking hands with the former leader or the current leader of Syria, who was, who's Al Qaeda and ISIS, and has commanded guys that have killed American soldiers. So, yeah, and I get it. I totally get it. We'll get into that more on Brennan House Live tonight.
Well, by the way, I do have some concerns with the Syria thing, and I don't understand it well enough myself. So I just want to say that. But I think the general force of things here is very positive, and I think we have reason to let Trump figure out how to play this out. I think he understands what's at risk here.
Let's go to. Well, here's one. Here's one right here. Fox News star turns on Trump, says the Daily Mail, as he cozies up to terrorist regime with a strong warning. That's Mark Levin. So I'm not generally a big fan of Mark Levin for various reasons I won't get into now, I've done before. But I can see why Mark would be concerned about Saudi Arabia and Syria. He says they played a significant role in 9/11 slaughter of our people. I didn't hear the Crown Prince even apologize once yesterday for what they did to us. And I know the 9/11 families are reeling from this. And Qatar protected the leader of the 9/11 attack from the FBI before he was able to launch his war on America that killed our people. The debate about whether the plane is a legal gift is beside the point. Qatar is a terrorist regime that has murdered Americans. I cannot let bygones be bygones, and those Americans who suffered the consequences of what these monarchs did cannot either. I can't stop thinking about all the innocent people who went to work that day and were on those planes, and all the firefighters and police officers who died horrible deaths. As for Iran, if they get a nuclear weapon, that's on our generation, and our country will suffer the horrible consequences. These are terrorists. They don't think like us, and they don't love life like us. We must have the guts and wisdom to protect ourselves. Well, I can understand that. As to Iran getting the bomb again, I think they already got the bomb. The question is, do they have the delivery mechanism? You know, but I think Peter Vincent-Pry already convinced us from this news desk in this room that they have it. The question is how many, and now do they have the capability of delivery? But again, I don't agree with Mark on some things. But I understand his position here. I have to say, I absolutely do.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I do believe Iran's already got uranium material, probably. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but there's a very high likelihood they've already got the material necessary to deliver some bomb, even if it's just a dirty bomb.
Sure.
So, but that said, listen, my disagreement with Mark Levin on this, I personally like Mark Levin in a lot of ways, but when are we going to take a different path than constantly throwing American troops all over the world? I don't know that we have had any success rationally in stopping much of this. Like, I think the Israel strike on Iraq's attempt to get a nuclear weapon, that was effective and it stopped something. But the fact is that we have been expending American lives and dollars for decades now in the attempts, in so-called attempts to stop all these things, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't stopped this progress. And what I see Donald Trump doing on this trip is providing some progress. I think that these countries, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, and I have my misgivings, but you know, the people who pushed, and I do believe that Saudi Arabia had something to do with 9/11, but the people who pushed that have been somewhat cleansed from, excuse me, from any power in Saudi Arabia. And that's not entirely the case. My point here is that try the diplomacy. Donald Trump is perfectly willing to bomb Iran if it really comes to it, honestly. He said that. He said nothing less than that in his speech in Riyadh yesterday. So I'm convinced Donald Trump understands what's necessary to stop this outcome. But he's taking an approach that is very challenging for people, and it's got Mark Levin apoplectic, and I understand from Mark's perspective why he is. I just think that this is something that we can attempt, and we need to figure out how to stop constantly going to war. And if there's anyone who can help us get out of that paradigm of war, it's one thing to go to war, but this paradigm, it's Donald Trump. So I'm willing to ride this out, and frankly, I think it's closer to the right approach anyway.
I totally get that too. And, you know, I know it seems as though Mark wants to bomb Iran. Boom, 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 let's do it. And we've been saying here, I'm sorry, do we understand the ramifications of doing that? Do we understand, excuse me, the terror cells that could be activated in the U.S.? So I think at this point, the borders were open for so many years under Obama, 8 years, 4 years under Biden, 12 years they've had to prepare the battlefield. So cavalierly saying, oh, let's go bomb Iran, well, are you prepared for the consequences on American soil? Because I don't think they're just going to sit by and let you do that without activating some of their cells. Would you agree?
Yeah, let's go into the presumption you and I think, agree upon. There's a likelihood that they've got enough fissile material to do something if there were sleeper cells here. By the way, I don't care if there are sleeper cells here, other than what the damage they might do. I think we can handle that. What we also cannot handle is a massive Mideast war. And I don't think we have any guarantee that we're going to be able to shut down all of Iran's capabilities in creating fissile material. So, again, I'm not a pacifist by any means. I want a tough military that we never have to use, and we only use when it's necessary. We've got to stop constantly starting wars. It doesn't work, or at least it hasn't worked the way that we've done it. And Donald Trump is doing a good job changing that paradigm. And I want to give him a chance to do it because it's closer to what I'd like to see.
I get that. All right, let's go to Colorado. Crazy Colorado. Well, they've really screwed that state up, haven't they? Listen to this.
Oh.
This, by the way, is, well, let me refresh it. This is a bill. Apparently, this is a bill. The Colorado House Democrats just passed a bill that classifies misgendering your own child as child abuse. It could cause you to lose custody if you don't affirm your child's chosen gender. I mean, I guess it just passed in the House. So here we go. Listen to this. We got it working now. I'm going to minimize it.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1312. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1312 has passed. The question before
Well, there you
us
go.
is
That's
the
crazy,
passage of-
Colorado. Why anyone lives there, I have no idea. I have a friend of mine, a good friend of mine for several decades that lives there, moved there for work and retired, and has stayed and can go anywhere. Has a house in Arizona, bounces between Arizona and Colorado. And I talked to him the other day. I'm like, why on earth would you stay? You're living in a Marxist-dominated state. Why would you stay there? Oh, it's so beautiful. It's like my friends in California. The weather is wonderful. I love the weather. I'm like, whatever. Good luck to you.
I spent a lot of time in that state. I've always, in my heart, it's kind of my second home.
Colorado?
Yeah. In
Really?
fact, I know that chamber very well. For 3 years, I ran the House Republican minority staff in the House.
What years was that?
18 through 21. And Pat Neville, who was then the minority leader, asked me to come back and help him out. That's why I left Thomas Massey's office. I wanted to help him out with that for a little bit. And we stopped a lot of really bad stuff with a majority that was tough to overcome. But we had strategies to shut a lot of bad things down. They're not pursuing some of those strategies as well right as we speak.
Well, why would people stay, particularly have children? If you could get out and get a transfer, get a transfer, why would you not get out of that state with the risk of losing your children to these nut jobs?
Oh, I think if you've got children, it is not the place to raise your family. I mean, El Paso County, Colorado Springs is a little bit better, but the laws are bad. Listen, it is very frustrating. I have many, many friends in Colorado. I was on the radio in Denver for 4 years there. I worked for Focus on the Family.
Do you know my friend John Loeffler?
Yeah, I'm acquainted with him, yes.
Yeah, John and I have been friends for 30 some odd years. He was on the radio in Denver, and John Loeffler and I, been friends for 30 plus years. He's Steel on Steel and all kinds of shows. But yeah, I figured you would have run into him.
Yeah, I was on KLZ in Denver. I'm going to be actually doing an interview with the guy who replaced me tomorrow night. But I love Colorado in terms of just the scenery, the places to go. Myra and I have dear friends on the Western Slope out in Glenwood Springs, and we'll visit them this 4th of July, like we do every 4th of July. But I can see why people would want to get out of there. I wouldn't want to raise kids in Colorado right now with these rules. It's astoundingly horrible. These Democrats, radical leftists, are destroying that state. And when I went there in 2005, it was still pretty conservative state. It was a great place to live, and you didn't have all these threats against you. Now they're going almost worse than California in many ways. It's scary.
They are. All these Californians moved there and destroyed Colorado.
It's not just the Californians, it's the Democrats who are already there. And what's interesting is California expats, the conservative ones have tended to go to Texas. The leftist ones have tended to go to Colorado because California has very similar beauty all around it that they had access to, and they supposedly wanted a better environment. Well, they got the same geographical environment. And yeah, I think that the Californian influx has had some influence, but the Republican Party there has been very, very, very weak. The current state party chairman and the most recent one are friends of mine, Dave Williams and now Britta Horn. We'll see. Republicans are just really weak, and this is what caused the downfall also, is a poor response from Republicans.
Why are Republicans so weak and so many Democrats are so committed to their cause? They never give up. They keep going to the point of stupidity. But Republicans, why are we weak? Why? We have the truth. It is the truth. Why do we have to apologize or weaken unless they are Democrats posing as Republicans, or are they people that have convictions but they don't have courage? Are we lacking masculinity and courage? Are we people that are afraid by people calling us names? Why are Republicans across this country so weak?
Because in my opinion, but there are a lot of reasons. One of the big ones is the consultant class that dominates the Republican politics, particularly at the federal level, but it weeds down into the state level. There's hardly a GOP state party that I would say is very effective or any good at anything they do, much less stand for what we understand to be Republican principles of conservative government. But another big problem is the nominees that we have typically for president, from Bob Dole to John McCain to George W. Bush. I mean, these are, and Mitt Romney, these are people who have not been committed to conservative principles. They've been committed to the Washington elite class that Republicans connect into. You know, a lot of people talk about the fact that in D.C. it's the uniparty. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, Donald Trump's shaking it up right now, and it's a little bit better at the moment in Congress, but not much better. But the consultant class in Republican politics really grabs what's taking place. They make a lot of money because people run, and they don't tend to care win or lose because they're going to become wealthy no matter what. The consultant class problem was huge in Colorado. Unfortunately, a guy who governed as a pretty good governor in Colorado was Bill Owens. The problem is he brought the consultant class into Colorado.
And explain to our listening friends the consultant class. What do they tell the Republicans? Oh, you need to moderate. You need to be a little more gentle.
They do that. And the other thing they do is they say, hey, you better lock up really quickly your television ad person, you know, on campaigns that have television ads, because you know, when it gets closer to election, you're going to have a problem. Well, what's really happening there is any campaign that can raise a lot of money, you've got all the ad people, they get money for the production of ads, and they get a 15% cut typically on the placement of ads. So if you're a congressional campaign doing $500,000 or $1 million in television ads, then that's already right there $150,000 that goes to the consultant just on one congressional campaign. On the national level, it can mean tens of millions of dollars. So that is really what drives it so much. The Republicans have neglected grassroots politics because there's no money to be made in working on boots on the ground. The money is made on the TV ads, and then the consulting fees that can come in. You look at the Republican National Committee, and historically for the last few decades, you know, or the NRCC. I mean, I saw this constantly too. You have these otherwise, you know, naive people. They might be very good people and capable, but they're too naive when it comes to this political thing. So they run up to the NRCC if they want to run for Congress, and they won the primary. Hey, can you help me out? The NRCC puts one of their own campaign managers in there, and then all the consultants that are the preferred ones of the NRCC end up being connected through that campaign manager, and then everyone makes their money, and win or lose. I mean, if you spend $1 million and lose, the consultant that doesn't hurt them. They just keep doing the money, and they keep getting the money, and they're going to just go on to the next campaign that will win or lose, and they're going to make the money just the same.
Wow.
It's really a vicious cycle.
Indeed it is. NBC News is reporting top Iranian official says Tehran would forego highly enriched uranium and nuclear deal with Trump. So it sounds like they're ready to get to the table if sanctions will be released. So he hasn't even gotten back home, and it seems like it might be working.
The one thing about Donald Trump that is unique, because if you get into this thing of trying to negotiate with people, you typically have people like a Joe Biden or further back a Neville Chamberlain, you know, who will give away the store just for someone to sign something to say, we want peace. Donald Trump's a lot different. He's like, hey, I want peace. I want your country to prosper. I'm also going to blast you, the living crap out of you, if you try to do, you know, he has a very big stick on the backside of his negotiations. That is the way to do negotiations when you're trying to get for peace, because there are dangerous people out there, and Iran is dangerous. Now, this will still be touchy because these are people you just cannot trust. But Donald Trump knows that, and he knows how to threaten them in the right way, and maybe he'll be able to move things in the proper direction thereafter. Now, Mark Levin probably doesn't agree with that.
Yeah.
But
Ed Martin, by the way, was the D.C. U.S. attorney until noon today. Ed Martin is now the weaponization czar and the DOJ pardon attorney. And I am being told that he will be on with me, I should say, on Friday evening on Brandon House Live. But I'm thankful that at least President Trump picked him up. A great man, Ed Martin, made him weaponization czar and DOJ pardon attorney. The music's playing, but 10-second comment.
Yeah, no, I know Ed for a lot of years. Fantastic guy. And he's going to serve the president well in this position in any place he can put him.
Jim Paff, theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. All right, thank you, Jim, and thank you, folks, for watching. And again, we'll be back here tomorrow night with my co-host, Jim Paff. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, a Wisconsin judge who allegedly helped an illegal migrant evade arrest gets indicted on charges of concealing a person from arrest and obstruction of proceedings. Several U.S. tech companies land big AI contracts in the Middle East after the White House announced the Islamic Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's commitment to invest $600 billion in the U.S. Americans get good news on inflation. That's in April. And we'll take a look at what that means for the Trump economy going forward. The manufacturers of Roundup and other cancer-causing pesticides get shielded from all legal responsibility in a second American state. Is this part of a trend? And a handful of Republicans are threatening to derail the upcoming budget reconciliation bill if it does not include federal funding for the nation's largest provider of abortions. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. Leading off tonight, the Wisconsin judge who allegedly helped an illegal migrant evade arrest was indicted by a federal grand jury on Tuesday. Indicted on charges of concealing a person from arrest and obstruction of proceedings. Just the News reports that the Milwaukee judge, Judge Hannah Dugan, was arrested last month for allegedly obstructing an immigration arrest. The migrant was Eduardo Flores Ruiz, who also was arrested last month. Quote, "We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse. Eduardo allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest," end quote. That's what FBI Director Kash Patel wrote on X last month. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has temporarily removed Dugan from the bench while the court, has its case play out. She is expected to fight the charges. That's according to the New York Times. Her attorney said Tuesday that, quote, "Judge Dugan asserts her innocence and looks forward to being vindicated in court," end quote. Dugan allegedly helped Flores Ruiz and his attorney escape from federal immigration officers on April 18th after learning that he was in the country illegally and that the officers were waiting to arrest him after his court appearance. According to an FBI charging document, quote, "Despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse," end quote. Flores had made it outside of the courthouse, but was spotted by a drug enforcement agency officer who chased him before catching and arresting him. Zero Hedge reports that several U.S. tech companies announced big AI deals in the Middle East after the White House announced Saudi Arabia's commitment to invest $600 billion in the U.S. Among the largest deals, NVIDIA will supply 18,000 of its cutting-edge Blackwell chips to Humane, an AI startup company just launched by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. Tuesday's announcement comes as part of the White House's Gulf tour, which includes President Trump and top American CEOs, such as Sam Altman of OpenAI, Elon Musk of Tesla, and Larry Fink of BlackRock. Humane CEO Jensen Huang told the audience at the Saudi U.S. Investment Forum in Riyadh on Tuesday, quote, "I am so delighted to be here to help celebrate the grand opening, the beginning of Humane. It is an incredible vision, indeed, that Saudi Arabia should build the AI infrastructure of your nation so that you could participate and help shape the future of this incredibly transformative technology," end quote. This is Saudi Arabia's AI company, he said, and the U.S. companies will be heavily intertwined with it. Watch this.
Congratulations, Tarek. Yesterday was the announcement, the grand opening
of Humane. Thank you very much.
We're delighted to partner with you. It was I'm honored and delighted to have watched you form Humane, and now this is Saudi Arabia's AI company.
Thank you very much. And maybe we should share with everybody one of the most important things. In building any AI company, you need the foundation and the infrastructure. And this infrastructure really relies very heavily on advanced chipsets and accelerated compute. Today, we are announcing that we're doing a 500 megawatt deployment with NVIDIA. It's a really, really big initiative for the kingdom. And I wanted, Jensen, just to give you a thought and idea about the innovation that NVIDIA is bringing to Saudi Arabia and to the global AI ecosystem.
You want me to talk about this?
Yes.
So this thing is sitting over here. I don't know if you guys could see it. It weighs too much to pick up. But this is 2 Blackwells, and it's 2,500 watts, 2,500 out of the 500 gigawatts of computing infrastructure that's going to be built. As you know, artificial intelligence has been a revolutionary technology, the most transformative technology of our time, maybe of any time. And you've heard plenty about the capabilities of artificial intelligence. You've also heard how AI is going to transform every single industry, meaning that it's going to be the infrastructure of every single industry. And Humane is going to be building the AI infrastructure here in Saudi Arabia. But what people don't realize is, unlike many technologies that are transformative, AI is also in itself an industry. It is a manufacturing industry. It's a manufacturing industry that requires energy. And as you know, Saudi Arabia is rich with energy. Transforming the energy through this giant versions of these NVIDIA AI supercomputers, which are essentially AI factories. Energy powers these AI factories. Artificial intelligence tokens are generated, and those tokens are reformulated into applications and problem-solving AIs that Tarek and Humane will.
Trump's Gulf tour aims to ramp up trillions of investments between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Outside of chips, the White House announced a $142 billion defense deal with the kingdom to provide what they called state-of-the-art warfighting equipment and services from over a dozen U.S. defense firms. To put the size of this contract in perspective, it's nearly double Saudi Arabia's total 2025 defense budget. Manufacturers of chemicals that make pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides for crops will soon be shielded from Georgians who say the company did not sufficiently warn consumers of health risk. The Georgia legislature passed legislation that aims to protect Bayer from lawsuits where customers have claimed there were no warnings that the popular weed killer Roundup could cause cancer. Governor Brian Kemp, a notorious rhino and globalist, I think that's what he is, he signed Senate Bill 144 last week. It takes effect on July 1st. The governor of North Dakota signed similar legislation last month, making Georgia the second state to establish these protections. The law says product labels approved by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency must be considered a sufficient warning of potential harm. The law is written broadly enough to provide legal protection in Georgia to any pesticide manufacturer that follows federal labeling requirements. Bayer, which is the parent company of Roundup producer Monsanto, is facing billions of dollars in lawsuits from people who claim that the weed killer gave them cancer, including a recent jury verdict that awarded $2.1 billion to a Georgia man. Bayer said it plans to appeal the verdict. Critics of the law argued that it would make chemical companies unaccountable for the harm their products might inflict. Sound familiar? Well, it should, as this is the same type of legal immunity that Congress granted to the makers of vaccines back in 1986. Look how that turned out, folks. Millions have either died or been harmed by vaccines, and their families have virtually, well, no legal recourse. I think this is what you call fascism, where big government colludes with big business to oppress the people. Just the News reports that April's inflation report came in well below forecast, and the Trump economy now appears to be defying the, well, analysts and politicians that predicted a collapse of our economy in the wake of his aggressive tariff policy. As Trump adds more notches to his belt in deals with key trade partners, the stock market has rebounded to pre-tariff levels, even while many tariffs remain largely in place on major